welcome to AFP. My name is Devang Desai, and I'm joined by the usual suspects, David Goss and Sean Kay. On today's show, we chat the Whitecaps' self-destruction in Los Angeles. TFC's hot streak continues. Montreal digs deep in Houston. Dane St. Clair's future in MLS. Alejandro Diaz to Norway. Jordan Hamilton to Forge. Mo Babuli to York United. We'll talk about all of that with One Soccer's Oliver Platt. Plus, we open up the mailbag for another edition of Ask AFP. Whew. Running out of breath here once again. A lot to get to. Gentlemen, how are we doing? David, what's going on?
I'm fantastic. At an hour after I finish recording this show, I'm going to take a class to learn how to make buffalo mozzarella, which is my favorite thing in the world. So I am stoked.
Oh my gosh.
Can't say I'm well versed in all cheeses, but I've heard of this one and I've had it a couple times and it was quite good. I imagine the process is intensive though.
I know nothing. My friend works at a cheese shop that does courses, and she is training. She's either creating the course for this or training on it. So she needed people to come for free and like be guinea pigs. And I was like, and there's cheese involved? Yeah, I'll be there.
I think it's got to be the elite cheese in my books. Like I love a dry, like sharp, like parm, but a like just mozzarella that just like oozes out and you can just dip it is untouched in the cheese world.
I would say caprese sandwich is the number one sandwich on the planet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So nothing comes close to the stuffed crust Pizza Hut cheese that comes out of that crust, though. That's fantastic stuff.
Your food takes are just so cute today.
They're getting progressively worse. No, and it's as I age, they're becoming untenable as I cannot digest any of these foods I once loved. Not to get hung up on that, Sean. How was your weekend?
Oh man, it was really good. Pretty chill, but today marked a great day. I'm not sure, David, if stooping is a thing in your neck of the woods in New York, but like there's a culture of like people placing goods that are still good for people, and you just thing. Go. Yeah, I don't know. I've been to New York twice, and I don't know. But anyway, this morning my next door neighbor was putting out a 2-foot tall AT-AT and a Star Wars Clone Wars tank just out on his front lawn for somebody to take. And I just ran out from my fire escape and yelled down, being like, Wayne, are you giving those away? And he's like, yeah, why? Your kid want it? I'm like, no, I want it. And so I ran down. And now on my kitchen table right now is 2-foot Star Wars toys. And honestly, when my wife walked out into the room and saw me playing with them and like going, ooh, it really just sort of like brought me to being like, I am nearly 40. And I'm playing with Star Wars toys, and it can't get any better than that. So things are great, guys. Things are great.
I want my own spin-off series about Wayne now, too.
Same.
Why does he have these Star Wars toys? What's his deal?
Tell me more about Wayne.
Who's this neighbor that yells at from the fire escape at him?
On a first name basis, too. That's heartwarming.
Oh, yeah, I know. Wayne is our next door neighbor. He lives here half the year. The rest of the year, he lives in New York. And
I like him already.
Yeah, and he just retired, and so he's getting rid of his kids' stuff, and so I'm reaping the benefits.
You don't know how much of me wants this to be Wayne Brady, but I doubt it would line up.
No, it's not Wayne Brady.
Damn. Fantastic stuff. A lot of footy as well. Premier League back in action. We got a Premier League question coming later, but I just want to say the headbutt, the Liverpool headbutt. You got to actually headbutt someone to really get your just desserts to earn that red card. He deserved it, but I felt like the sell job by Joachim Anderson was some WCW class there. That was good stuff all around.
Oh, that entire game was frustrating to watch. Like, I'm not a Liverpool fan, but like I just felt like that back line was just manhandling the front line of Liverpool the entire game. And then the one time that they retaliate, there's a sending off. Like, don't get me wrong. Yeah, it was very, very...
Yeah, but Sean, your parents always tell you the one who retaliates is the one who gets in trouble.
It's true.
It's true, Dad. It's true.
Especially when someone steals your Star Wars toys.
Don't you worry. I'll retaliate any chance I get. I'm a terrible soccer player in that sense, by the way. I am the first one to chirp back. I am the nicest man in the world face to face, but once the whistle blows, I am a terrible loser.
I've seen Sean in a few charity quote unquote soccer tournaments in which you wouldn't know we were representing a good cause by his actions on the field. But it's the killer instinct, eh? It's the will to win, etc. Before we get into today's show, a reminder, we are on patreon.com. For $4 a month, you get access to our Discord server where we're chatting footy and other stuff all the time. Plus, you get ad-free episodes. Plus, you get them early when we record on Tuesday, David.
It's the best deal you can get. You get it ad-free. You get the show early, as Devang said. You get into Discord so you can ask all your Ask AFP questions, which we can download straight into our brains and then spit you fire answers. So what else could you want?
The money helps us get better production, editing, planning, all that jazz. So all in all, it helps us make a better show. So if you feel like helping us out, head on over to patreon.com/A Football Podcast and support us today. When we come back, another incredible week of MLS action, the Canadian teams, some highs, some lows, plus the heat check and your MLS headlines coming up next.
This is better now from the Galaxy as they get forward. Here's Julian Araujo. Knocked it into the area. Chicharito lets it go across. Grandsir settles. Fires the goal. Score! And that's how you answer that. 4-1 in favor of the LA Galaxy inside 40 minutes of play.
Whitecaps fans, welcome back to AFP. I'll take the blame for this. I will take the full blame. I'll put my hand up. I was quite high on the Whitecaps last week, talking up Cody Cropper. I'm like, we're all right at the goalkeeper position. This team has what it takes to make a run, and it starts in LA against the Galaxy. That didn't happen. Obviously, as you're well aware, the Galaxy running off to an early lead that they would not relinquish, plus a Christian Dahome red card just to add a final whiff of badness to the whole affair. It's funny, I was feeling confident, and the heat check displayed that last week, but after a weekend of fixtures, that gap between Vancouver and the playoffs seems a bit larger and a bit more insurmountable. I mean, David, I don't know where you want to start here, but you can't fall behind this early against a team this desperate, I feel like, against the Galaxy.
And a team that just has had trouble finishing lately, and then they'll guaranteed give you chances, right? Like if you hang around a little bit, especially in LA, that's how you win. And so it was just a train wreck of a way to start against them, and really gave you no way to get back. And I think we've talked about it a couple times, but it feels like they've brought a lot of pieces in along the back line, and then too often you're watching guys who it felt like they'd already moved on from get starts. And Jake Nowinski, I think, is one of them in this. But like, right, they spent a lot of money on Blackman. I think Veselinovic is a high quality player. They've played Javain Brown now as a center back. They let Godoy go at the end of the transfer window because they didn't see a future for him. And yet you've got Nowinski whiffing on a ball to sort of open up the attack for two players in Grandsir and Cabral who could not hit the side of a barn for the last 3 months. Like, you gifted two of the least confident players on the field their best opportunity.
Victor Vasquez looking 10 years younger and more lithe than ever with a shot that probably should have been saved. It was just quite poor. And I think the strategy of bending and not breaking, when it works, but when it does break, it gets quite ugly. I think on a positive note, Easton Ongaro starting was a cool story. I mean, amidst bad circumstances and the Whitecaps missing players with the Edmonton and CPL grad getting the start in LA was cool to see. But Greg Vanney certainly loves playing the Whitecaps. I bet you when he saw this schedule and he's like, we are down bad. I need something good to happen to me. And playing the Whitecaps usually for him is the elixir. It's a statement win. They're back in sixth. All those guys who couldn't buy a goal now have one. So perhaps that bodes well for them going forward. But I feel like it's a sliding doors moment in the playoff race. We called it a 6-pointer, but it really feels like, I don't want to read too much into one game, but I felt like the Whitecaps needed to come away from this game, David, with more than when just a -3 on the goal sheet. I think they needed a point here.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And we're starting to run out of time. And it wasn't just you on the Heat rankings. I think I've been pretty high on this Vancouver team as well. It just feels like they've been put together correctly. Now, not having Kubas available hurts. International signings take a while to come in, especially in the summer because they're not in season. So Chop will take time. All of those things, although Galt hit instantly last year. It's tough. And they have a lot of 6-pointers. This wasn't the only one. Basically, every game left for them is a 6-pointer, including a second game against the Galaxy. So there's still wiggle room there. But it comes with you need to go 4 unbeaten with 3 wins against good Western Conference teams. There's no more, oh, Nashville's a tough one. Oh, Seattle's a good team. Like, those all have to be W's.
We had a listener write in asking when Kyle Alessandre was going to get minutes next, and I have an answer for you. It'll be quite soon, but it'll be in Brazil for Fortaleza, as he's been loaned out. Only made 5 appearances across all competitions for the Whitecaps. A lot of injury issues. Definitely not the way they wanted this to go, David. I know perhaps he'll come back, but I feel like this didn't work out really.
No, and I think Shop is a replacement for him, right? And
right,
they have Owusu as well, who also they brought in with a ton of hopes, and I don't know, I would argue has been below that level. Who was the one that they loaned to Italy, by the way?
Damiano Piselli?
No.
Piselli, I think?
Not the academy kid. No, they acquired and then loaned a center mid, a defensive midfielder. Basically, every player that's been brought in at this position has been the same person. None of them have succeeded until Kubas. So I'd rather them acknowledge that and move on from players they don't see having value and sort of opening up space for guys that you think can play. But I think it's pretty frustrating to see how many wasted windows there have been. And that sort of comes into your calculus of, well, if they don't make the playoffs this year, like sort of what's the breathing space you're giving this front office?
We shall see. I mean, the clock's ticking. Colorado, RSL next.
Jumping in here
games.
for a second.
Yeah.
Janio Bikel. Is that the
Janio Bikel. That's who it was.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it Parma?
Vicenza.
Oh, Vicenza. Yeah. Again, Bikel was supposed to be a starter for them.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. You appreciate it.
No problem.
Moving on. Toronto FC, Portland Timbers. The first time you could truly say TFC reached the zenith of their potential, maybe, and showed what they were really all about with the big guns in tow. Dominated the game. Had an oh-so goal that thought, okay, home free, but another classic lapse at the back that we've come to expect from TFC led the Italian megastars to have to do what they came here to do. Michael Bradley with quite the skill on the Insigne pass. Bernardeschi, my mom fully wants a Bernardeschi jersey now. I never thought I'd see the day where we are at this level now.
There we go.
The fandom is reaching new heights. Here we go. Like, this is it. And I mean, I felt down talking about the Whitecaps, and I'm feeling up talking about TFC, but I look at the schedule and it really is all about now this week. I feel like this week is such a massive couple games and on the road to the playoffs. And I see some of the statistical models are still burying TFC, David, but I'm wondering how you feel about them heading into this week. You know what's scaring me? You know what is massively scaring me? I'll ask you. Guess.
Insigne's inability to score penalty kicks against Petrovic.
Wow. No. It's the pause revenge game. It's Alejandro Pozuelo going ham.
In a week.
Yeah. So New England, Inter Miami, just vibe check on the game itself. Exactly what you wanted. I'm sure the powers that be at MLSC were watching this game, a full house at BMO Field. I had people messaging me being like, I'm going to check out the Italians who don't go to TFC games. It's lit, and it was a great game. It's everything you would want.
Yeah, it's fun, right? And it's why Toronto FC was successful, because not just were they talented, but like it was an event for all of those years at BMO to see Javinko and Josie and Michael and celebrities came out, and it was a big deal. And it felt like that for the first time, I think, since probably Javinko left, although you could argue 2019, but still that was from a lower position making that playoff run, and it wasn't a year of excellence. And so that's really exciting for, I think, the club, and it's exciting to see it all work. This is the third straight week that we're saying this, and this was the best performance of all of them, even though they beat Charlotte 4-0. That's Charlotte. Like, this was a Timbers team, I think that was 12 unbeaten coming into this game. They have Niashkoda, who's been on fire. They've got Sebastian Blanco. They've got Chara, Moreno. Like, this is a tougher attack to negotiate. To only give up one goal is really good. And then this is a better defensive team to be able to pull apart, even if Luis Mabiala wasn't in for this one. So I thought it was really impressive. Again, I thought Jadon Nelson's understanding of how he needs to play now with the Italians there has been really positive. Like, he's just been all energy in that midfield, just trying to connect play, trying to counter press quickly. Like, he sort of has taken on what I think we've said a lot about Osorio in the way Oso understands how to play off of other talent. Nelson feels like he's already there in terms of understanding his role inside the team.
Ayo Akinola for 30 minutes, super active, was robbed by the Portland keeper, but a strong performance.
Robbed?
I think
he dribbled into the keeper on a one-on-one. He was not robbed.
The reaction save right before the Bernardeschi goal.
That's like someone throwing their wallet out of a moving car and saying, someone robbed me.
I thought wow. Didn't expect pushback on that part of this point, but I was going to ask you, Jesus Jimenez decidedly cooled off. I think there's some, you could ask, is he a good fit with the Italians up top? Ayo Akinola looking like a pretty decent fit for those 30 minutes. Would you change that up at the top, or would you keep riding with how they've been starting games?
I think I'd probably leave it the way it is. Again, I was pretty disappointed with Ayo's finishing in that. It is different. It is early balls out of Insigne and Bernardeschi to launch Ayo into the attack. First, Jimenez dropping in, picking it up, and then moving the whole team into the final third to interchange and play. So the way they affect the team is very different, which is great for Bob Bradley. Right now, he's got two different options. He can change things up, but I don't know that Ayo's earned it. And you can just see the things that make Jimenez special are they are similar to those other guys, and he sees the game similar. It's the same reason I think Crescito's been so successful, is like he just has the same understanding that Insigne does, whether he's physically up to the level or not. And I don't think right now you're going to take anyone off the field with the way the results have gone going into the New England game.
I've just watched the save again.
Well, so there's two though, Devang. This is the one in the 85th minute. Right. So that's not the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. He got robbed on that one. But previous, he dribbled into the goalkeeper on a full breakaway.
Right. Sean, please.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask you guys, because we just barely touched on Oso and finding space again in the box and putting in the back of the net. And with him and Cavallini sort of getting on that 10-goal mark, I started doing some research, and I wondered if you guys wanted to do a little bit of trivia, going back to the old days, going back to the old pre-100 shows. So I would call this one an easy one, but still, I want to know the Canadians who have scored 10+ goals in a season.
How many?
In Major League Soccer, how many? There are 3.
Dwayne Di Rosario.
Yeah, Diro's one.
Oh, I'm trying to think of attackers. Is like Toe St. Ricketts one?
No. There's one that's obvious, and you guys are going to be like, of course, but it's just been a long time. Not a long time.
Kyle Aaron.
There you go. There's 2.
Yeah.
And there's one other. Still current. Still playing?
Current.
Yeah, still playing. Oh, yeah, he's playing.
Canadian who scored 10 goals.
Oh, Tesho.
There we go.
Akindele?
Nice. Good job, Devang. Let's go.
So that one came a little bit easy. So I wanted, because I thought David was going to come up with another one just to be a smartass. And so
did you think I was going to say Teal Bunbury?
Yes. And so I have an asterisk part of dual nationals that have scored 10 plus goals. So they are all American and Canadian, and it's either A, they were born in Canada and chose to play for the United States, or they have a father or mother that allows them to play, but they both played for the United States. There are 4 of them.
Is it Sidney Leroux?
No, no. Teal Bunbury is one. There are 3 others. One.
I don't know that we've ever talked about this. Is Landon Donovan Canadian?
Yes, that's another one.
Okay.
You go.
That was like always one of those deep, big soccer message board things that I was never sure if it was true.
Yeah, his dad is Canadian, and I believe moved to California to play hockey professionally.
To Ontario, California. That's messed up.
So Landon does, I believe, have a Canadian passport. So there's 2 other ones. One currently plays and has 3 caps for the United States. The other one is long retired, and I think he played 30 to 40 games for the United States. But he's like an MLS
The
OG.
other one still plays.
Yes, he does.
There's an American Canadian in MLS who played for the U.S.
Yeah, 3 times.
Is it Io?
Nope.
No.
It's 10
No,
plus
Io
goals.
plays for Canada. 10 plus goals.
Yeah.
Plays in MLS.
Yeah. His bread and butter, and I believe the year that he scored 10 plus goals, he played for the Columbus Crew.
Oh, Tony Johnny?
No.
Tony Chani got brought up on the show, so I'm happy with that. Is it Ethan Finley?
Yes, it is. There we go.
Wow. I did not know that he was Canadian.
Yeah, he's got a Canadian father as well. There was a small chatter in 2015, 2016 that if he was interested to play for Canada, and he said no, there was no interest.
Why? Why not?
I think because at that time he was banging in goals for the Crew and was like, I'll get the cap for the States, and he played 3 games. So,
I didn't even know he played 3 times for the U.S.
Right? I know.
Yeah.
And then the last one, guy was born in Toronto. He has 24 caps for the States. Last game though for the States was in '98, so I can understand if you don't get this one.
It's also hard because I don't know what the states are.
Oh God,
because I don't speak Canadian. The United States of America.
If you couldn't, yes, the United States of America.
Okay, cool.
My eyes are rolling extremely
nice
hard right now.
I have no idea. What team did he score the 10 goals for in MLS?
The Colorado Rapids. Yeah, he played for the Kansas City Wizards, the Metro Stars, Colorado Rapids, and San Jose Earthquakes.
I have no idea.
Deep cut, Mark Chung.
Oh, wow. He's Canadian. Okay.
Yeah, born in Toronto.
Didn't know that at all.
There we go. Everyone's learning here today.
Everyone's learning. This was great.
Incredible. Can't believe I said Tony Johnny, by the way. That's an insane guess that I don't know why I said.
I love that guess.
I'll stick it.
So yeah, Oso's going to be among great company, hopefully next game. So we'll see by the end of this week. Will he get his 10th goal?
We shall. I wonder what Bob Bradley decides about his CBs. I think you've gotten everything you wanted out of Lucas McNaughton. He's played a lot of games, played a lot of minutes, tough minutes, but I wonder if they decide a different center back pairing to go forward with. That's a bit up in the air. I don't know if that's a game breaker for them at this point. I think these guys are kind of interchangeable at this point. I don't know if one is extremely better than the other, but it might just be a game by game thing, David. But I don't think that's going to be the make or break thing for this club, even though they've been leaking goals all year.
Well, I think it is. I just think I agree with you in that there's no fixing it.
Yeah.
I think the reason TFC won't make the playoffs is because they're bad defensively, but there's nothing, I don't think there's any way on the roster to fix it. And I don't think you start shifting numbers around to appeal to it. Like the way they're playing is the way they're going to play. When Kay's healthy, he'll be in for Nelson. But otherwise, like you leave it how it is and you're just going to try and blow teams off the field. The Revs will be an interesting one for that because they've been really good defensively over the last few weeks. They are not as explosive offensively, so it will. I guess the question will be who will dictate the way that game gets played.
New England Wednesday, Miami Saturday, massive week for TFC's playoff chances. Finally, amongst the Canadian teams, Montreal.
Devang, would you bet that Pozuelo scores a hattie?
Not a hattie. He'll definitely score. I will bet he scores. I have never been more sure of anything in my life than him scoring. And he hadn't been playing that well either until last week, right? So I feel like he's peaking as well at the right time. That's terrifying. Less terrifying, especially if you're a CF Montreal fan. They found a way to beat Houston 3-2. Rudy Camacho got absolutely smoked on that first goal. What a ball from Hector Herrera. It's first class. It's a fun game, a bit of a weird game. Kyoto getting a bit of a weird... I didn't understand how that was called a handball in the box. The defender literally could not do anything else than what he was doing. But they gave the penalty, and I guess Kyoto, trying to pay it forward and be respectful, shot the ball to Mars, missing the net entirely, which I respected as well. The game was weird, but Big Al Johnston and CF Montreal found a way, winning ugly on the road in the terrifying heat of Texas. Toy Wanyama rested. 4 wins, 2 draws in their last 6. They played at an extra game, I believe, than New York City, but they're in second now. Just more than we've come to expect, David. Not the prettiest at all, but they're solid, very good players who can play in most situations.
Yeah, they don't really beat themselves, although, as you said, the 2 goals against were sort of poor moments capitalized on by quality. Like Sebas Ferreira is legit as a center forward. What he does to Camacho, that's not an easy finish. The way he gets it past him, brings it down, and then finishes. So Kyoto has set his personal best for goals in a season, which is pretty wild because you kind of think of him being successful, although he hasn't played as center forward that much. Georgie draws the first penalty. Guy's been out 3 months. He doesn't get to take a PK to score a goal. And then Kyoto gets a second one. And I've never really believed in having the same person take twice, but it's just like, Wilf, let's get our guy a goal here. Let's do Georgie a solid after like 2.5 months of being injured. I thought that whole part was weird, but otherwise it was impressive. I think you saw Mihailovic sort of be the hub of everything again, which was big. And you see every time Ismail Kone's on the field, like it's not perfect. There's a lot of mistakes. It's unique, but he is literally everywhere. He treats professional players like children at times with what he can do. And he is an X factor because he has ability that no one else has.
To aid to my Western Conference slander, that lap line in winter, it felt like he was moving in slow motion. I haven't seen step overs that slow in some time, and yet they could not stop him. They could not. Get out of here, Western Conference.
Houston Dynamo, you could argue, didn't have a single starting defender on the field for this game. That's like not saying their roster doesn't. They did not have the starters
David?
they had this season. Yeah.
Houston, we have a problem. And that problem was CF Montreal.
That's a classic. Isn't that a movie from the States?
I'm too hurt to keep going, but I'll just say this. Alistair Johnston coming up to the World Cup, 1 more year on his deal. I think 2 option years as well. Interesting case study. I mean, his value arguably will never be higher, but I feel like he is part of the leadership group of this team as well. What's the next step for Big Al? Is he gone?
Yeah. But he's gone because Montreal traded for him, and Montreal isn't going to spend money. So they didn't trade for him to then give him a big deal, right? They traded for him to then sell him. And Nashville traded him to he could be sold as well. Like they kept a percentage. He's definitely gone. Where, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting to look at Richie, right? And sort of how that went.
Case studies. Yeah.
He's younger, but he's also a converted player. Like he was a center mid for much of his career, played a little winger, and now he's a center back / fullback or wing back. But I think he's probably, I was going to say, I think physically he's more ready, but I don't know, dude. Richie was bossing Portland Timbers players this week.
I'm like, did he come back as a Ballon d'Or? What are they doing in Nottingham Forest at that training?
For sure.
This is
incredible. He didn't play for 4 months, so he just hit the gym 3 times a day while he was in England. He's powered by chips. But so maybe that's wrong. But I think Alistair Johnston having that positional flexibility, your hope would be he comes into the right team. They play 5 in the back. That gives him 2 options to get on the field. I think he's good at both of them. But I wouldn't be shocked if it was like a Belgium, right? Like
Yeah.
if it wasn't a jump into a top 5 league immediately.
Well, I have a feeling half of Belgium will be scouting him when it comes to
Right.
Qatar. Probably
True.
more than half as they watch that game. So what better chance to show you wares? All right, Sean, it's the much famed Maple Leaf heat check, which we might be able to do literally instead of the teams this time, as you guys are both melting literally as well.
Oh, the lack of air conditioning during a podcast is something that the listeners just never understand. But heat check time, let's do it. Devang, we start with you. I know you're feeling good about it. TFC, let's give it. They're 8 wins, 12 losses, 5 draws, 29 points, 12th in the East now, 4 points back, 9 games remain. How are we feeling?
Quite hot. I think this will pave the way for a blockbuster finish. I have a good feeling about this week, even though I'm terrified of Pozuelo, but the temperature is high. Feeling hot.
David, I know we were down on them, but Vancouver, 8 wins, 11 losses, 6 draws, 30 points, 12th in the West. Only 3 points back. 9 games remain. How we feeling?
So for this week, I'm going to choose to use the Scoville ratings, which is the way in which you rate the heatness of a pepper, because Sean has created this assignment with 0 direction or control, which I've pushed back on every single episode.
Keep going.
So
keep going.
On the Scoville rating, a bell peppers is 0, and then a Carolina Reaper is a 1.5 million. I would put Vancouver Whitecaps right now at 10 to 25,000, which is in the Serrano pepper territory.
Okay. Do you like a Serrano pepper?
Yeah, I like most peppers. I don't love super spice. I like most peppers, and I like the Vancouver Whitecaps as well. I would love to see more of their players available to them more often. But the way the ebbs and flows of their season, Vanni Sartini came out of the Canadian Championship, said if we play like that, we'll make the playoffs. So to then sort of lay down in LA, I think is a really worrying sign that when it felt like the cult, because that's where we're at right now, is like the team is the team, the talent is the talent. Vancouver has to outwork most teams every day, and they have to do it every single game. And to lay down in a big game like that is worrying.
Devang, Montreal, 13 wins, 8 losses, 4 draws, 43 points, second in the East. 10 points up, 5 points back, 10 games remain. How are we feeling about Montreal?
You know those sparklers that shine really brightly, but they go out relatively quickly, and it's not that great, and you're just holding like this burnt, like kind of wiry thing in your hand afterwards? They're not that. They're like one of those sparklers that you get online that permanently just stay on, and they're permanently sparkling. They never go out. The power is strong. The light is strong. Montreal's looking great. The heat is high.
Oh, God. You guys never cease to amaze me. Bravo, everyone. Moving on to the MLS headlines. David, Seattle with a loss in RSL this weekend. Time is running out. You were confident about them last week. Still feeling good? They got the Galaxy this Friday.
I am still feeling good because they are a team that they just need to make the playoffs, and they'll be a team no one wants to play. And I think with Raul Ruiz coming back, there's still enough quality to squeak across the line. And who would you trust in big games coming down to decision day more in that race than the Sounders?
Devang, Dane Sinclair stands on his head yet again. Well, he's running hot and cold right now. Do you expect him to look into Europe in the next couple of years? Or do you think he follows the Sean Johnson, Andre Blake route and just becomes like a steady elite Major League Soccer keeper?
I wonder if he follows some of the other guys that have gone to Europe recently from his position. And also with the Canadian keeper position being a bit unsure after Milan Borjan hangs it up, I think there'll be a big opportunity for him at only 25 years old. The world's a bit of his oyster. I think when we talk about Alistair and Richie, the age is maybe a negative, or it's like they're getting on in years, but I think it's a bit different for keepers. So I see Europe in the future. He's really, really good. I think he maybe gets lost in the conversation up here because he plays for Minnesota, but it'd be nice if more Canadian fans could get to watch him on a weekly basis because he's showing out.
I think, can I just throw in, I think he's definitely going because there's been no attempt to move Tyler Miller from Minnesota, and that signals to me that they think he's going to play soon, which means that Dane St. Clair won't be there. So it just feels like the whole thing is set up so that Miller's the starter when they sell Dane St. Clair.
Speaking of moving, David, Kai Wagner to Leeds United. Do you think he has the ability to play at that level?
I will say yes, although I am told by people who are closer that maybe he is not in as good a shape as we would think, considering he plays for Philly and he would have to be. So I'm not 100% sure, but Jesse Marsh knows his level and knows the level that he's coaching at, and he seems to be pretty committed that he is.
Follow-up question, just because if he was to join, and obviously Jack Harrison's there, do we consider them honorary Americans? Like if they're scoring, are you tweeting about it?
Yeah, they're part of the mob.
Okay.
They're part of
sure.
Major Leeds United. Yeah. They're in. Jack Harrison's in the crew.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure that when they do something good, that we can be proud of them and call them honorary Americans. Great.
Yeah.
Devang, Cincinnati only has one loss in their last 11 games, but have only received 14 points. They only have 2 wins and 8 draws. Are Cincinnati really a good team, or are they just riding the high of 2 really good players?
Are they fake Nashville? Probably. Just tying all the time and getting by. But I think Nashville defensively was just always a lot better. And I wonder if Miazga will be enough to make Cincinnati less prone to conceding a boatload of goals. So I'm not sold. It would be nice to get some new blood in the playoffs, but I'm not sold on them.
Last but not least, David, Austin had a crazy 4-3 comeback this past week, with Driussi doing it again with 17 goals and 10 assists this season. Do you expect him to be the 5th player in MLS history to record a 20-goal, 10-assist season?
Yes, I do.
Great. And there we go. That was the headlines this week.
Bam. There you have it. That's a lot of news. When we come back after the break, more news of the CPL variety. One Soccer's Oliver Platt joins us to talk about the slew of transfers, plus some big games as we hit the tail end of the season. Welcome back to AFP. What a wild week in CPL in regards to transfers, trades, scorelines, derbies, heated contests, and some of the biggest matchups this league has to offer. We thought it'd be best to bring in CPL savant Oliver Platt of One Soccer to join us to cover it all. Before I get to Ollie, I just want to recap what has happened briefly, if I can. I'll take a deep breath. Jordan Hamilton has joined Forge until 2024. Mo Babouli has joined York United until 2024. Matthew Baldissimo has been loaned to York United for the rest of the year, will be a free agent afterwards. In that same move, Cedric Toussaint was loaned to Pacific until 2024. Wero Diaz, reigning MVP, transferred to Sogndal in Norway. He's already scored a goal. And hey, Sergio Camus just joined Atletico Ottawa on loan from Atletico Madrid too. Deep breath. The games. Cavalry defeated Forge in I think what was the game of the year so far in terms of intensity and atmosphere. It was electric. Pacific defeated Ottawa 1-0. York came back to defeat Edmonton in stunning fashion. And Halifax got a win over Valor. Wow. That's a lot to get to. I have to be selective here in terms of where we start, Ollie, but I do want to start with Alejandro Diaz and that transfer to Norway in the second division. We saw him score already for them, and that moment for him must have been great. But just off the top, Oliver, I wondered, how do you see this move for the league itself? Because I think there's 2 ways to look at it. It's tough to see someone of this stature go during the season and someone who's so obviously important to his club. But on the other end, this is, again, exactly what this league was supposed to provide for people like Alejandro Diaz, who might have fallen through the cracks without it. So I wonder how you view this.
Yeah, I get the impression that this one was maybe quite player-driven. I think Alejandro's partner is pregnant and expecting a baby in the winter. So I think there was maybe a desire on the player's side a little bit to kind of get a move done and be settled for obviously a big part of their personal life. So I think that probably played a part as well. It's going to be a tricky balance, I think, for this league to get right. Is obviously, we know that there's a big desire to sell players and to get into that global transfer market and find its place in the food chain. And that's important, I think, for the future of the league. And obviously, not just financially, but for, producing the kind of caliber of players that we want this league to produce, they need to go to higher levels if they're going to be, competing for places on the national team. But at the same time, it's tough to see a title contender, the defending champions in Pacific, lose a player who would probably have been the player of the year in the CPL this season, as well as the Golden Boot winner if he'd stayed here for the entire campaign. So, as I said, getting that balance right between understanding you're going to have to sell players and be ready to replace them, but also wanting to, to show your fans and to show the rest of the team, we're going to keep our best players for a title run in here. That's going to be something that I think the clubs have to kind of find the balance as we continue, hopefully, to see players who have the capability to go to higher levels.
But didn't we already see Pacific coming into this year lose a lot of strong players and maintain their level? I guess I would say, if there's any club that you'd believe could somehow take a hit like this or lose a player like this and continue, wouldn't Pacific be at the top of that list?
They'd be high up there, yeah, for sure. And they've done a good job with the players they did lose in the off-season, as well as the coach, obviously, was massive. I think there was probably maybe more natural replacements for Campbell and Hajabrapur when you looked at, Bustos had missed a lot of the year with injury. Baudissimo, though he's now obviously gone to York, was kind of a natural replacement in midfield. So that seemed a bit more of an easier transition at the time. A player like Diaz, I'm not sure how you replace mid-season. They've got good attacking options, Pacific, so maybe it will be about playing a different way, and I'm sure they'll still score goals. But there is no player in the league who was quite as complete a centre forward as he is.
I think I called Diaz the reigning MVP, but that was more of he's going to win it this year. That's Jal Morelli erasure as well. Right. I apologize to my Halifax friends. I understand the hate mail that's coming to me. Bit of a downer, but again, understand the move. But to some positive stuff, Ollie, and I think I mentioned that Forge Cavalry game and that being maybe the staple of this league or the most exciting matchup this league has to offer. But within that game, Jordan Hamilton back in Canada and back with Forge, opening his account. I watched his press conference after, Ollie, and you could tell he missed this. I think you could tell he was looking to get back into something like this, and with the atmosphere you had at this game, it felt like the perfect setting for him. In terms of Forge, they're pretty stacked up top. Is this a move for next year as well, or where do you think Jordan's going to fit in?
I think partially, yeah. I think it's probably tough to see Rubens Passius being here beyond this season. He's just, in my opinion, potentially the most exciting young player this league has produced so far. I just think he has everything you look for in a centre forward. So he's one who's probably bound for a higher level sooner rather than later, which opens the way for Jordan potentially next season, I think, as much as anything. But at the same time, like we all know Jordan Hamilton from his time at TFC. Generally, when he's been given opportunities, he scores goals, right? And I think he's certainly a good bet to score a lot of goals in this league. So, I don't want to say by any means that he's not going to have a major part to play between now and the end of the season. And we saw a glimpse of that cavalry, although Forge couldn't hold on to that point. Just having the ability to bring someone like that off the bench who, if you present him with a chance, there's a good chance he'll take it. It's just a case, I think, of the rich getting richer with Forge's attacking options.
We thought this year would be Mo Babuli. He chose to leave, now comes back to the CPL to join York United. What do you make of sort of his decision and now how it affects a York side that has been fairly young most of the time in their CPL history?
Yeah, I think it's one that they can kind of build around over the next couple of years with Mo. Obviously, York getting in the playoffs this season is going to be difficult, but I think what's clear with that team is that they need to find some kind of foundational pieces going forwards, guys who they can rely on not only from a quality standpoint, but from a personality standpoint as well, some leaders in the group. And I think Mo could potentially fit that description as one of the kind of core attacking pieces for them over the next couple of years. He's also a player who's just so versatile, right? You can play up front, wide, attacking midfields. So you don't really need to worry about what the team is going to look like tactically. You will find a way to fit him in with the quality he's got. So it was an interesting one for sure. I was told he was training with Forge up until he signed with York. And obviously, I don't know what exactly happened there. I would guess maybe Forge are right at the salary cap now after bringing Hamilton in. So maybe it was just one they couldn't do. There's no more space on their roster. But I guess York benefited from that and were able to get him to a pretty long-term commitment.
Just follow up. You mentioned as a leader a bit with Mobabuli. We've seen him move a lot. What do you make of him as a culture part of York United?
Well, hopefully you're right, he has moved around a bit and obviously to different parts of the world, but hopefully signing that contract is kind of an indicator now. I think he's 29, that he's ready to kind of settle down in one place and maybe play a bit more of the role that we've seen like Kyle Becker play in Hamilton, for example, as someone that a team that hasn't really had a lot of success through the CPL's history so far, only one playoff game. Someone that they can kind of build around, like I said, and start to put the foundations of a stronger team in place over the next couple of years.
I've been bullish on York. I was before the season. I think my prediction is looking quite bad in hindsight, but I'm not alone in that. I wonder like how Ollie, maybe within the league and outside amongst the observers, I understand the youth movement. We talked to Mitchell Tierney about like the minutes that they've gotten from their young players, and it's impressive to see. But I think I look at the table and I understand that's not where they want to be internally within the club and maybe within Martin Nash's ranks. How have they viewed the season? Because in one sense, I understand like the template remains there and they're making moves to help their players find new pathways. But I also understand the results are wanted. Have they been able to balance that?
I think it's obviously been difficult for them when you look at where they are in the league table. I think there's kind of, I kind of look at it two ways with York. I think there's kind of the more immediate picture, which is that they need more experience and more leaders in that group, I think, to guide the young players. I think that's been an issue at times this season, just lacking some kind of mentors in there. And there's been players who have got injured who have, obviously that's not helped in that sense, someone like Michael Petrasso. But then there's also just the kind of bigger picture with York, and increasingly I'm feeling like it's going to be difficult for that club to really be successful when you look at what Forge have got, what Cavalry have got, what Pacific are building now as well, until they get that permanent home, right? And until they get a training ground, a stadium that's theirs, and they can really start to build the culture of the club in a way that I think has a massive effect on performances on the pitch. So while they're still playing in kind of a temporary place and everything's a little bit in flux, I think it's going to be challenging for them. They'll probably always kind of be one of the underdogs of the league. But that being said, there's definitely steps I think they can take and have started to take to put a more competitive product on the pitch next season.
Let's move over to Pacific. They picked up 21-year-old defender Cedric Toussaint. Did I pronounce that right? Does anyone feel like I did?
That's up for debate. Some people say Toussaint, some people say Toussaint. So it's about a 50-50 split.
Is this a situation where a team has to make a move to get some more under 21 minutes and sort of figure out a way to get over that line as we get towards the end of the season?
I think that's part of it, and it will be helpful for sure in that sense for them just meeting that quota. But I actually really like this pickup for them. I think it's one that's kind of a little bit under the radar and maybe not a player who people think will come in and make a massive impact. But Pacific needs a central midfielder. They've lacked depth in that area, and the way Pacific play, it's high pressing, high energy. They need legs in that area of the pitch. I think we've started to maybe see Jamar Dixon look a little bit older this season in that respect. So having another young player who I think can come in and just give them a ton of energy, ball winning ability in the middle of the field, I think he could actually be a sneaky, nice little signing for them going into the run in here.
And on the other end, Matthew Baldissimo, I think some eyebrows are raised perhaps of the term for these guys. Like Pacific will be able to have Cedric Toussaint for a few more years, but Baldissimo is a free agent after this year. I'm assuming this is also kind of angling to negotiate with him before he hits free agency, Ollie, if they like what they see and if he fits in.
Yeah, I think it's like basically just a trial period to see if there's a fit on both sides. I think with the Toussaint side of it, York has got some incentives if he's sold on in the future, so they've kind of protected themselves a little bit there, and that's more of what they're receiving in the deal. Baldissimo's a good player. I thought he was very, very good in PEI when we were in the bubble. Hasn't really replicated that since. So if there's something they can find there to maybe get the best out of him, he certainly can be a good player in this league. But he needs regular minutes, and probably a change of scenery is the right thing for him.
Another one of the unique moves, and I feel like all of these are so different, which is kind of why we want to have you on to dig in. You've got older players coming back. You've got younger players moving around. We had Atleti Ottawa bring Atletico Madrid to's captain to Canada, obviously Atletico, the overall overarching owner of both those clubs. Sort of, what do you make of a move like this, and what have you made of the connection between what we've seen in Ottawa and what's going on in Madrid?
Yeah, it's produced some good signings. Both players who are kind of inside Atletico's system, but also just generally some Spanish players who have come over. Miguel Acosta, I think, is one of the better fullbacks in the league. He's been excellent for them since pretty much day one. Diego Espejo has come in on loan this season from Atletico Madrid and done really well for a 19-year-old centre-back in the league. The new player, Camus, I don't know a ton about, but he's got quite decent pedigree playing for the B team. He's played quite a lot of games for a 25-year-old. So I think he's someone who they can potentially plug in and play straight away and adds to a defensive group there, which is already pretty deep and pretty strong. So that's been the identity for Atletico. As much as they didn't really lean into it, at least from what they said out loud before the season, they've ended up being this team that is very much in the image of Atletico Madrid. They're super solid, hard to play against, don't mind sitting deep and hitting you on the counter-attack. And that's really turned them around from last season when they were defensively extremely leaky.
Talked about the signings. We talk about the play on the field. There is a bit of a tier now, or two different tiers. The top four look relatively safe. I think, barring an unlikely run from Valor at the end here, we have our playoff teams. I just wanted to go back to that Cavalry Forge game. Ollie, the temperature was extremely high. I think I was looking for the word. I think it's the signature match of the league, because these are the franchises as well who I think are the model of what everyone else is trying to do or want to do, as you mentioned with York. I did notice, though, that this felt a little more intense than normal for a regular season game. And I wonder now that the fact that they are just so far ahead, maybe, and I know Pacific won last year, but in terms of the class of the league, I think you can still call these two clubs the class. Do you think they've reached a new level? I think there's respect there, obviously, but I felt like this was maybe an escalation.
Yeah, I think it's the one rivalry in the league that has consistently had heat in it. Like there's other games where there's been moments. I think Pacific last season, Pamadou Ka was a really obviously fiery character who brought a lot of personality to Pacific against Forge. So we saw it a bit more there. But this is the one since day one that have been, consistently the two top teams in the league. And I think on this occasion, it was a lot about Cavalry needing to win that game. Like it's got to the point now where if you look at the games that have really mattered over the past few years, whether it's been, important regular season games or playoff games, Forge have kind of had the better of Cavalry pretty consistently. There's been some Cavalry wins in games that maybe just haven't quite had the same meaning in terms of points or the standings or whatever. So I think this was one where Cavalry needed to prove a point a little bit. They'd also been on a tough little run in terms of their own form. And they did. They played exceptionally well, played with a ton of energy, played exactly like what we think Cavalry look like at their best, which is that high pressing, high intensity team that disrupts the opponent, doesn't let them get into any kind of rhythm. So I thought it was a statement one from Cavalry's point of view. And I think that's a big part of where the kind of the tension and that aspect of it came into the game.
If you looked at these top four teams, and I think you mentioned Cavalry needing to stay within touching distance of Forge. I watch Atletico Ottawa, and I think to myself, in a knockout game, that system could definitely work. It could work anywhere. And I look at a Forge and say, well, look at the firepower. They can score against anyone. I wouldn't be worried about a defensive system. But I think them being able to host that game if they get to the final is huge, and whoever locks up first place obviously has that incentive in mind. But is there a team right now on August 17th that you are thinking this will be our champion by the end? Are you able to make that pick right now? Or maybe who are you most impressed with so far?
Forge is the team to beat, there's no question. And you can look at that even from the perspective of that Cavalry win. Like if that had been a two-legged semi-final, they've still got to go to Tim Hortons Field then and defend a 2-1 lead, which isn't going to be easy. So Cavalry, even playing that well and they were excellent, would still have a lot of work to do over two legs to win that tie. So I think particularly, like you said, if Forge gets the first seed, which they're currently on track to do, and get to host that second leg and host a potential final, which is one leg, then they will be pretty strong favorites, I think. But we said that last year, and then Pacific went to Hamilton and kind of parked the bus and caused a big upset. So we'll see.
Quickly, I know Sean will hate me for this, but this will be dated because it's happening tonight. But Pacific CONCACAF League, this is a much harder test against this Costa Rican team. If you want to look like a clairvoyant, what is your prediction only for this tie?
This is it's gonna be a tough one. There's some really good players, some Costa Rica internationals, obviously in this Herediano team. So arguably the toughest CONCACAF game that any CPL team has played. We'll see, obviously, how Pacific does without Diaz in the lineup as well. I think they've just got to kind of drum up that stadium, right? We saw it against Vancouver in the Canadian Championship. When they can get that place rocking and create some home advantage, then they've got a chance. And we've also seen that some of the teams, from Central America that have come to Canada haven't necessarily traveled that well and have been a lot better in their own stadiums. So I think they've got to try and generate a good atmosphere in the place, try and play on the front foot and take the game to them and get some kind of advantage that they can take back to Costa Rica, which is going to be really, really tough.
Hate hosting that first leg. Hate it. But this is the cards they were dealt, and we'll see how Pacific does. Ollie, always a pleasure, man. Where can we find you online?
You can find me at Platt Ollie, OLI on Twitter, and that's pretty much the only one I still agree to use. So just there, yeah.
The best Bees Brentford Doug Ford related joke I've seen on Twitter ever.
Not often that you get that crossover.
That's right. Follow him at One Soccer as well over there. All right. Thank you to Mr. Platt. When we come back to wrap up this week's show, it's the mailbag. Ask AFP.
And welcome back. It's now time for Ask AFP, where Devang and David will do their best to answer all of your questions. Thanks to everyone on the Patreon Discord as well as Twitter this week for your questions. We'll get right to it off the hop. Stephen H. asks, after Andrew Grootman scored the 20,000th MLS goal, looking back, which one is your most memorable goal in Major League Soccer history? Devang, let's start with you.
So I won't pretend to do like a historical pick and be like, this was the most important for the league. I'll do the one for me. That was the most important. I was still at TFC. This was the game when Sebastian Giovinco flew back from Italy at international duty for the Red Bulls game, and TFC was going to clinch their first ever playoff spot. No one thought he was going to play, or it was very unlikely, but he did come back. And not only that, but he scored an insane goal, and the crowd went nuts. And I was field level at the time, and it was just electric. And I will never forget that moment. And I think the goal itself gets replayed all the time, but I always try to pick out like new things I missed as I can like see the whole field and know where people were exactly. So I think that's my pick.
That's a good pick. One goal is like not that easy.
No, it's not.
One goal. I feel like a Dua Lipa song now. One goal. I don't know. I guess I have zero idea.
I'll go first.
One.
Go
Okay,
think.
yeah,
go
go.
think. Just think on it. I can go first because similar to Devang, it's something that isn't the greatest goal of all time. It's not Zlatan at BMO Field. It's the moment that I knew that I loved Major League Soccer, and it was Dwayne De Rosario's overtime goal to send the Earthquakes to win MLS Cup. It was just this moment of this kid I like had heard of, like everyone had talked about D-Ro throughout my childhood, and it's like, this kid's going to be good. And then he comes off the bench and scores this banger to win the game, shirt over the head, celebrates. It was just such a great moment, and it really just cemented my love for Major League Soccer. And it was just the moment. It's not even D-Ro's best goal. Like that free kick goal that D-Ro scored that like bends the wrong way has got to be up there too, because that one, it like legitimately is a top 10 goal I've ever seen in my entire life worldwide. So, but that goal cemented my love for MLS. David, did I buy you enough time?
Sort of. There's a lot out there. I'm going to go with Josie versus the LA Galaxy when Beckham came and almost sold out Giant Stadium, the 5-4 game. Juan Pablo Angel had an early goal in that one as well. But I think for me, I didn't go to that game because I was working that night at Home Goods, which is something that I'll never forgive anyone for. And I don't even know who's at fault. It's like one of the great regrets of my life. But just watching that game, it was like, oh, this is this big moment. Beckham's there. Everyone knew who Juan Pablo Angel was. Colombian international, obviously, had had played in the Premier League, Landon and Carlos Pavón and all these big names. And so to have a young American like Josie be an attacker the way he was and to score 2 goals, but the first one, the big one, to sort of like open it up for Red Bulls, that was to me a big moment. I think it's a big moment in MLS history. It was a big moment for me as a fan to be like, oh, there's like other guys that can do this. So that's one that stands out.
Memories. They're the best. Moving forward, we got Hammerman, assuming he's a Forge fan. Now that Jordan Hamilton is back in the CPL, who's the next player that you would like to see back in North America playing in the CPL? David, start with you.
I think the first one that stands out to me as a possibility, whether I'd like to or not, is Tyler Pasher. It's just bizarre to me what happened in Houston. I think the Red Bulls could be a good fit, but if not, now you start to look at a guy who basically, if he doesn't get picked up again next season for Red Bulls, that'll be 3 MLS teams in 4 years, and none of them really found value in him. So that's kind of the first name that comes to mind. I think he'd be awesome in the CPL because he's a grinder, but he has that quality as well.
I'm looking at a way back playback. Simeon Jackson, come on down. Ex-national team player, still grinding in England. In England in the 4th division, I think.
Yeah, like the conference
or 5th? No, 6th division. Yeah.
Oh,
the Van Armara National League South. Bring him home.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. That's a deep cut. I love it.
I didn't know he was still alive. That's a big one.
35 years young.
Shout outs to Simeon Jackson. Still probably banging them in the 6th division in England. We got a question from superfan Devang from the Discord. He asks, Sean, Spurs fandom aside, who came across better in the Conte Tuchel exchange? Nobody. I like they both came across pretty childish in it all. Don't get me wrong, I love a good shithouse here and there, and so like I think Conte was ready for a little argy-bargy, so I got heated and I enjoyed it, but at the end of the day, they're 2 grown men who are operating billion-dollar clubs, and I don't know if they should be acting like that. However, I think Conte was only doing this out of reaction. I don't think that this would have come to where it was unless he was pushed to the brink.
I don't know about pushed to the brink, but I do think that Conte is like a master of finding someone's not weakness, but like picking on something that maybe he knows will rile someone up. And I think the fact that he does have that history at Chelsea, he knew what to poke, and he got someone who was kind of looking for a fight himself, and everyone came across kind of bad, but also it was great drama. And as a neutral, I was like, as someone who doesn't really like both teams, so I'm like, haha, this is fantastic. Please more. So I don't know what sanctions they're going to get, but yeah.
So I like in all my preseason picks for Premier League stuff with people, I picked heavily against Spurs because my assumption is that Conte won't make it to the end of the season because it's Conte. And this just made me feel so much better about everything. So yeah.
Wow.
I think he's here for the long haul, actually. So that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Like he's been anywhere for the long haul. Yeah, no, Sean,
Wow.
you're going to change him.
The Kool-Aid.
Yeah, no, you're going to change him. I'm sure of it.
I just think, and by long haul, I mean through this season. I'm not saying that like 18 months maybe is what but that's on him. But the Spurs front office have given him everything that he needs. And so I think that we've got enough runway for this season. Also, shout out to Romero and Richarlison, who I thought I was going to hate immediately. Now I'm just like, this guy is scum, but he's my scum. And so
I love how he cheered. He ran away like he scored the goal when it was clearly Harry Kane. I love that as well. I'm like, that's some Richarlison hubris.
Yeah.
Also, to be clear, Inter gave him everything he wanted, and then he left.
Yeah, but he won. But he got it. He got everything he needed, but it was like, what's left? There's a project here. We are a broken team, and he is going to once again. Long term, 12 months. Pochettino's in the wings waiting, and it's going to happen. But I still think he's still got the full season. I would be shocked if he doesn't. Anywho, moving on, we have Wando99. He asks, out of the 4 officials on the pitch for a match, if you had to do a job for the evening, which one would you prefer to be? A linesperson, 4th official, or head referee? David?
So I would definitely say none of them, to be clear. And let me
Yes.
tell you an unreal story. I ran into Howard Webb at the All-Star game, who is like one of the nicest dudes in the world. And we were chatting because he's taking over the head of officiating at the Premier League after this season. And he was talking about, he said, we're looking for someone to replace me. Do you want to do it? And I said, no. And then he told me a story that there's, I will not name him, an MLS coach who was out of work, but like longtime MLS veteran. And they reached out to him from pro and said, we're looking for a consultant to come in as a coach to sort of talk to referees and help us sort of craft things with the coaching background. And apparently this coach sent an email back with everyone on it, didn't take anyone off, and listed 10 things he'd rather do instead of working for pro ever in his life. And they were all trash jobs. And it's amazing. So I just need to get that out there. But I would say 4th official because I don't have enough concentration to be an AR. Like I'd miss every offside because I'm watching the ball. And when I go to GA Cup, the pretty much referees that are on the verge of being an MLS, they're the ones they bring there. And the really good 4th officials, they talk shit. It's not a one-way street. When you're down there listening, they are ripping coaches and players, and it's like back and forth, and that would be something I think I could do pretty well.
Devang?
I think I'll pick head referee. I need to increase my cardio in general, and I think this will give me a good reason to up my training regimen. So just a kick in the butt, I'll become a referee.
I also think, Devang, with your secret height, which I didn't know about until you met Nick, you'd command the field pretty well. Like you'd command respect pretty well from players because you'd come stand over them.
I've dreamed of doing the VAR signal and pointing to the spot as well. I feel like the power that I could have with that would be just exhilarating.
Oh, I'd take AR just because I'd hide. Like the 4th official gets so much yapping, and then the head referee just gets their spotlights on them all the time. So if you make a bad decision, with being an AR, like VAR's got to save you. You can throw the flag up if you want. Maybe you put it down because you're like, oh, I'm protecting the play on the field. You really got a lot of gray area that you can really ride. So what I'm trying to do is do the least amount of work and not get yelled at. So that's why I'd go there. Last but not least,
Smart.
Robbie asks, now that everyone knows about Atalanta, who's the new hipster team that everyone needs to be watching this season? Devang?
Oh, God, that's a tough question. Don't feel super prepared. I was thinking like Europa League teams, but I mean, really? Do you want to get into that? I want to say Nantes. Nantes in France is my pick.
Arsenal's a pretty garbage team. That
I mean, honestly,
we're going to talk about. Like,
I'm gonna pick Nantes. Yeah. I'm gonna just phase out the hatred I'm hearing and pick Nantes because I don't know. Like it's kind of a mid-table club in France with a really bizarre color scheme and a really cool badge and a history of producing some ballers: Desailly, Deschamps, Makelele.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hipster enough.
I agree with you. I think that's a really good one. I would say probably the entire Bundesliga would be where I would push people. And in particular, I would say right now, Union Berlin, just because, again, they have like cool colors, cool vibe, cool home games. Berlin, obviously, Hertha, the dominant force, but hasn't been legitimately competitive in such a long time. And now all of a sudden, Union's like popped up and they're challenging in the Bundesliga, probably not to win it, but they could probably challenge for a European spot. Plus, they've got an American in Jody Pifak, so you're all good.
Bam. Amazing. Sean, do you have a pick?
Always somebody that I feel like the hipsters are on the verge of liking, but they haven't been great lately is Marseille. I just think Marseille has that like really cool
Marseille
jersey.
turning Arsenal players into superstars, by the way. Nuno Tavares has scored twice already as a defender. So that's a great pick. Amazing. That's all we have for today. A big thanks once again to Oliver Platt from One Soccer for joining us and talking CPL as that season heats up as we approach the end. A reminder, if you enjoyed this episode, head on over to wherever you get it to rate us or review us as we hope to get this pod into more people's ears. We're also on Twitter at A Football Pod and, of course, patreon.com/A Football Podcast. Join us there, get the show ad free, get it early, plus join our Discord where we're chatting footy all the time. For producer Greg on the ones and twos, and for David and Sean, thank you so much for listening to AFP. We'll talk to you next week.